Listen, we know with the Iran war with America and Israel that the oil prices are surging across the board, and it looks like it's all negative news unless you're an investor that's invested in oil refineries in America. But today, I want to tell you about the top 4 oil refineries that are happening on the continent of Africa right now. Because here's the thing, even though there is global war, potential famine, chaos happening everywhere, there is still a rising of Africa that's happening because this issue that is now spanning the entire world with the supply chain, with oil prices, has actually presented a unique opportunity for the continent of Africa. And it looks like Africa has finally gotten it and gotten on board with unifying and bringing their products to the world market. See, here's the thing. For decades, the continent of Africa would only buy back their oil as a refined fuel after they exported the crude oil to Europe and to other people to sell it back to them. But we are in a new era of industrial sovereignty. These are the 4 projects that aren't just factories. These are geopolitical levers that are going to create a level of leverage that the continent of Africa has not seen in a couple 100 years. I mean, we're going back to the African Renaissance glory days. Now, you've probably heard of the first one, Dangote, Nigeria. He is the entrepreneur that is responsible for the scale of 650,000 BPDs, and the impact is going to be crazy on the Naira and trade relations. And if you're wondering what BPD is, it's barrels per day, okay? It was actually commissioned in 2023, and it's already the world's largest single refinery at the time of recording this video. So Nigeria is pretty much set up to increase their Naira because, listen, the petrodollar made America strong. The Naira actually used to be stronger than the dollar, but then they got rid of their oil and they didn't use it as much. And now they're waking up and they're like, hey, we need to get back to the oil, because at the end of the day, no other nation on the face of the earth is going to be able to create the impact that Nigeria is able to create with oil, with the exceptions maybe being somewhere like a Venezuela or Iran with the Strait of Hormuz. I was so shocked doing this research for this video because he's actually expanding this in 2030, an ambitious $40 billion plan that aims to more than double its capacity by 1.4 million BPDs by the end of the decade. Because remember, Nigeria is also one of the most populated nations on the continent of Africa. Now here's the macro impact. It targets meeting 100% of Nigeria's domestic fuel demand while exporting surplus fuel to regional markets, potentially saving billions in foreign exchange. And when we say regional markets, can somebody say Southern Africa, the African islands, maybe even potentially the Middle East? I mean, this is a huge Renaissance level move. Let's get that straight. And with a Nelson Complexity Index of 10.5, it's actually more advanced than the refineries that are in the US, that averages 9.5, and Europe, which averages 6.5. Leave a comment down below if that is shocking to you, because truly, Africa is setting the stage for oil dominance. Like, say hello to the new African oil kingdoms. Now let's head over to Ghana. We're staying in West Africa, but now we gotta look at Ghana's oil refineries. In Ghana, they have the Sentuo oil refinery, while the state-owned Tema refinery, which is of course probably in the city of Tema, Ghana, is upgrading to 45,000 BPDs. The privately owned Sentuo facility has emerged as Ghana's most active refining plant. Now here's their regional strategy. They are trying to still have the state-owned refinery, but be positioned as a key industrial hub, and it aims to reduce Ghana's reliance on imported refined fuels and stabilize supply for landlocked neighbors. I think this is so great because obviously landlocked countries, if you think about Congo, Central African Republic, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some other landlocked countries right now, maybe a Zambia. Some of these landlocked countries do not have the advantages of having these main ports. Like Africa has a lot of main ports, like the Tima port, Dar es Salaam, Tanga, Mombasa, okay? Mauritius, Port Louis is another top port on the African continent. And so without access to those ports, it's hard to have trade. So Ghana's like, hey, we have your back if you are some of these more center-line countries. Now, if you like this conversation, we are literally having the State of the Diaspora, the 21st edition, this Sunday, May 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern, right before the Mature Adult Intensive, okay? Check out the link in the description. Your ticket is $100 because we are going to go over all of this, but also the best countries for you to have stability in Africa if you'd like to stay for 10 years or 20 years, because there's just a couple of countries out there that issue 5 and 10-year residence permits for you if you're an entrepreneur, a retiree, or an investor. Check out the links in the description to get access. But listen, a lot of people view this channel. Once spots are gone, they're gone. If the link does not work, you were too late. Now, Ghana's infrastructure plan, this is amazing, spans from 2018 to 2047, and they have long-term goals to scale the TOR to 60,000 BPDs and establish new refineries to process indigenous offshore discoveries. Can somebody say modern day African Renaissance post 2030? Like, this continent is the place to be, okay? Clearly. Because while the US dollar is declining, while geopolitical tensions are rising, the continent of Africa is finally waking up and saying, you know what, we need to own our resources. Now, this is coming on top of the fact that Burkina Faso is also going to not necessarily do oil refineries, but they're going to control their energy supply sector and stop sending their raw energy resources out to France, right? So they're going to keep a lot of that in-house in the Sahel Alliance as well. But let's go down south and let's go to Angola and check out their refinery. This one is expected to be commissioned by 2027, so like in the next year. And it's a $6.2 billion project, again, in Angola, that's designed to process 200,000 BPDs. Like, this is a huge number. And it's a strategic export zone because beyond meeting Angolan domestic demand, it's designed to supply, get this, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Zambia. Somebody write this down. Somebody, if you are homeschooling your children, let your children see this video so they can take notes and understand what's happening on their mother continent, okay? Because Angola said, hey, Congo, Zambia, like we were just talking about, 2 landlocked countries, we will supply you with the oil you need. This is where you start to see the African Free Trade Alliance come into effect. This is also where I believe you're going to start to see better investor and residence permits across the continent of Africa, because when Africa has this surplus of wealth and resources that are not exploited by the West or exploited by the West anymore, then it gives this continent the room that it needs to make initiatives for their people, to make initiatives that are attractive to their diaspora, and to finally be that continent that was number one the way that it used to be in the not too distant past. Now, in Angola, they have the Lobito Corridor. And right now they're running feasibility studies to actually see if they can have a dedicated Lobito-Lusaka pipeline. So Lobito in Angola, then Lusaka in Zambia. It's funny, we also have clients who are in Zambia and have been there for years. So that's really interesting, really fun, because the goal with that is to facilitate the regional energy integration, okay? So think about Africa not having as many power outages. Think about Africa finally being lights on across the entire continent. Think about some of these leaders and private sector leaders. This is why I love entrepreneurship, love business, because you have the power to really change things economically for the communities that you care about. But we were just in the South. Now let's go up north, okay? Because we cannot end this conversation about the top 4 oil refineries in Africa without mentioning a certain North African country. Drop your guess down below before I say it. The Hassi Messaoud refinery is actually located in North Africa in the country of Algeria, which used to be a French colony as well. If anybody's taking notes here, just pay attention. France is hitting some major L's. That's why they also had to go to Kenya recently and try to get some investments going on. But this is not what that video is about, okay? Because part of Algeria's plan is a massive $60 billion investment through 2030, that's pretty soon, to modernize its oil and gas sectors. Now, they're most likely going to be sending some of this oil up north a bit to the Mediterranean regions, to regional powers near Libya, Egypt, all of those guys, all of North Africa. That's probably going to be their prospect because those are their closest regional allies, just geographically. And so you could potentially have resources being sent to still the continent of Africa from Europe, because Europe is entering a major oil crisis. Does anybody remember the dark ages in Europe, where Europe was not the society that it is today, but Africa as a continent was the society that was dominant with Timbuktu, the Songhai Empire? This is what I'm saying. We are literally living through an African Renaissance, and I'm just so glad to actually live here and to be living here over 6 years with my family, my newborn baby. Like, it's just giving life, surplus, prosperity, blessings, positioning. It's just giving, okay? Now, let's talk about this modernization that Algeria is going through, because located near the country's largest oil field, Hassi Messaoud is undergoing upgrades to enhance the distillation of light fractions and transactions into a more complex processing hub. So basically, the hub that they have right now is a little bit outdated. They're like, you know, we've had Algerian oil for a long time, supplying it to France, supplying it to whoever, but we need to modernize this. We might need to include some AI, some more technology, put some of these things into play so that we can have a dominant oil processing hub. And remember, all 4 of these things are happening on just one continent. Somebody just let me know if you can think of one continent that has these top 4 oil refineries the way that Africa does, because I'm gonna assume that you probably can't come up with a continent that is winning like this in the oil game the way that Africa is. Now, CNN should be covering this, but obviously they're not gonna do it. That is it for this video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Save this video, share this in all of your Africa Facebook groups, your WhatsApp groups, shoot, even your China Facebook groups, because everybody needs to understand one thing. Yesterday's Africa is today's Africa. And when I say yesterday, I'm not talking about the early 2000s, the 1960s. I'm talking about the heydays of the African Renaissance. Think 1300, right? 1200, 1400, where Africa was dominating with the largest library that ever existed in the world, with King Mansa Musa giving out gold all across the continent. We are coming to that point again right now, but this time it's going to be due to oil instead of gold. And it comes at no better of a time when the world is in a global oil crisis. Africa is stepping up to the occasion. Now the question is, will you step up to the occasion and receive the call to transfer your life, your family, your investments, your business to the continent of Africa before it's too late? Get in while it's early. Check out the links in the description. Go to www.journeywithus.com/services to learn more about the Mature Adult Intensive that is coming back May 31st. We're currently on cohort 8, so this will be cohort 9 on the 31st. And I'll see you in the next video. Shalom, shalom.